Cześć, z tej strony Dominik Szcześniak, a ty słuchasz podcastu Dane są wszędzie. W każdym odcinku znajdziesz praktyczne wskazówki, inspirujące rozmowy i ciekawe spojrzenie na to, jak dane wpływają na nasze życie, pracę i decyzje. Zaczynajmy. Hello to everyone. As I mentioned, from time to time we'll have some special guests and episodes are gonna be in English, so it's gonna happen today. We've got Nikola Ilic today. I guess most of you know Nikola, but Nikola, I would like you to share a couple of words about you.
Yeah, hi Dominik, hi, and it's great to be with you here. Thanks for inviting me. My name is Nikola. I'm originally from Belgrade in Serbia, but for last 9 years I live in wonderful city of Salzburg in Austria. I moved here because of my job. Currently working as an independent data platform consultant and trainer, and my main focus is on Microsoft Data Platform technologies, namely Power BI and Microsoft Fabric. Before that, I used to work with traditional Microsoft BI stack, so SQL Server, analysis services, integration services, reporting services, and then I switched a little bit in the last couple of years to these, let's say, more modern services and tools.
Yeah, sure, I get it. And most of you might know Nikola as Data Mozart. Follow his blog and the content that he's creating. I'm super happy to have you here. As I also, when I was into my journey, I used to learn from your materials as well. So it's
thank you
to chat with you today.
Always happy to hear if my resources help someone. So that's always great.
Yeah. And speaking of the Fabric, as we started chatting and I invited you, I know that you recently published a book. The title is Fundamentals of Microsoft Fabric, that you wrote with Ben Weissman, your colleague. I have a copy. I haven't read it yet. I plan to do it by the podcast, but unfortunately I didn't make it. But still, I have it as a digital copy. And speaking of the book, how did the idea of having it written came up to your minds, guys? What was how was it to have it written?
That's an interesting story. First of all, thanks for purchasing the book, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts once you read it. Sure. We would like to hear a feedback. So it started a little bit strange because I have different types of engagements with O'Reilly, doing some live trainings, creating courses, and so on. But I never considered writing a book. And then last year, when I talked to my acquisition editor, Michelle Smith from O'Reilly, she suggested that there is an idea about creating a book about Fabric. And then I spoke to Ben coincidentally on that same day, and I asked him, "Do you want to write a book about Fabric?" And he was like, "Yes, but only together with you." And then I was, caught a little bit between two of them. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And it's good that it happened that way, because if it was not for Ben, I would probably never finish the book. So writing alone is very, very hard and challenging. And writing with someone else, especially someone else like Ben, who is very responsible and accountable, this made the entire process of writing way more convenient and easier. Also, we had great support from O'Reilly team, from our editor Shira Evans, and it took us. So we started approximately somewhere in July last year, and we finished manuscript by the end of April this year, with some last changes after the FabCon. That things are changing very fast in Fabric, so we had to update our content all the time. And this last, let's say, cutoff date was after the FabCon in Vegas. After that, we decided, that's it. It's better to put something in second edition, some new features that are coming in the meantime. So essentially, we finished the book by the end of April, and it was published approximately a month ago or something like that.
Yeah, sure. I can imagine that as the tool is rapidly changing, yeah, yeah, your process might have also need to be changed. And
Yeah, I mean, if you write a book about the tool that is already mature, like, I don't know, Power BI or something like that. So Power BI is also changing, but not so fast as Fabric. So it's easier. Here, just I'll give you an example. Screenshots. Taking screenshots, including screenshots in our book, user interface changed at least 3 or 4 times since Fabric was announced. So it's a challenge on its own, plus all the new features and functionalities that were introduced. So yeah, but it was interesting, and we are already planning for updating the content with latest announcements, and yeah.
cool. And how did you like it? How would you compare it to like your, let's say, blogging or some YouTube content?
It's different because you have more responsibility. I mean, if I write a blog or create a video and I publish that, then if there are any errors or mistakes, or someone is reading and then tell me, hey, Nikola, you can do that in a certain way different than yours, I can change my blog. I can update the blog easily. So it's just, like 15 minutes of work. With the book, you have greater responsibility because you can't update the book so easily. And especially once the book is printed, it's over. So it required a little bit more investigation, thought process, and everything else. But it was also a great learning experience for us, as we had to investigate about some features and functionalities that we are not using so often. So I'll give you an example. I was writing a chapter about GraphQL or data science. I'm not doing this in my day-to-day work. So yeah, essentially investigation, talking to members from product group in Microsoft, and getting their insight, their feedback. This was also super helpful.
Yeah, cool. And so once creating some content or writing a book, I can imagine you can also, of course, learn, plenty of stuff. It's
Absolutely.
I like it about sharing the knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest advantage of the process. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I would like to discuss Fabric a bit. Yeah, I know it's a very wide topic. I already had one conversation with Magda, a colleague from Poland. We just did some kind of an overview. But today I would like to jump more in a couple of, let's say, tools or components. We could have then like a whole series on Fabric. So let's try to make it today work for the users. First of all, I would like to start with OneLake, because that's like you also mentioned in the book that all roads lead to OneLake. So we can elaborate more a bit on that, because it's like some people consider this as OneDrive for data. What can we share with the listeners about OneLake? How does it work? What's so cool about it?
Yeah. I like this definition. All roads lead to OneLake. And first of all, I would say that OneLake is really the core component behind Fabric, because without OneLake, Fabric would not be Fabric. So it would be just another tool where you can create different storage accounts like you can do outside of Fabric. So I would say that OneLake is really at the center of the entire Fabric ecosystem. It's just for, if someone doesn't know, it's the central storage repository for the entire organization that uses Fabric. So when we say central storage repository, we really mean that. This means that unlike in other products where you can create multiple storage accounts or use multiple storage options for your data, in Fabric, all data roads lead to OneLake, either through natively storing your data in Fabric. So if you use a lakehouse or warehouse or SQL database to store your data, it's natively stored in OneLake, or by allowing you to access the data that is stored outside of Fabric, but still be able to leverage this the same way as the data was natively stored inside Fabric. I'll give you a simple example. You have a data that is stored in your Amazon S3 or Dataverse, for example, you can use shortcuts as a feature in Microsoft Fabric to access this data, and this data becomes immediately available from OneLake and can be combined with other Fabric workloads. Or you can use mirroring, for example, another feature that allows you to create a near real-time replica of the data that is stored outside of Fabric and also have this data available immediately, or let's say almost immediately, inside Fabric. That's why we say that all roads lead to OneLake one way or the other. All roads in the end lead to OneLake, and all Fabric engines can consume data from a single central storage repository, which OneLake is. So that's my main take, and I really consider OneLake as a key component of Fabric.
Cool. And is it possible if we've got some kind of a, let's say, transactional system, that we get the data out of, is it possible to just simply dump it, push it directly into OneLake, or you need to always have some kind of a, let's say, regular storage account? I guess you can do it directly to OneNode, right?
Yes.
OneLake, sorry.
Yeah, so it depends. It depends what is your external transactional system. If we talk about, for example, Azure SQL Database or SQL Server, mirroring feature, the one that I mentioned, supports both these data sources. So that essentially means you enable the feature change data capture. That is the feature that you enable on the data source side. So in this case, let's imagine that we are talking about the Azure SQL Database as our data source. You enable this change data capture. Once you do that, what is going to happen within the Azure SQL Database? There will be a log of all the changes made to the data, all inserts, updates, and deletes. So essentially, any application that can read that transactional log can get the information about all the changes to your source data. In this case, with mirroring, when you create a Fabric item called mirrored database, this mirrored database will connect to your transactional log and will read all the information about the changes in your data, and it will automatically synchronize with your mirrored database inside Fabric. So to answer your question, yes, for example, mirroring feature enables exactly that scenario. No ETL, just synchronization that is handled automatically in the background.
Okay, cool. And so what I really like is this mirroring stuff, that you mentioned, that you can also connect if you already have some storage accounts or AWS accounts, I mean some buckets, you can connect mirror.
AWS, just to be clear, AWS cannot be mirrored, at least not yet, so it's not supported as a data source. AWS is supported for shortcuts. S3, so not everything in AWS. S3 is supported for shortcuts, but for mirroring, it's Microsoft set of data platform products like Azure SQL Database, SQL Managed Instance, Cosmos DB, SQL Server, but also Snowflake and also Azure Databricks Unity Catalog are supported. So those are currently supported data sources. But maybe if they are listening to our podcast, they will also include AWS in the future for mirroring. Who knows?
Yeah. And what's the difference between mirroring and shortcutting, just in a couple of words?
Yeah. That's one of the common points of confusion. So that's a great question. The main difference is supported data sources. So if you have your data stored in Azure SQL Database, you can't use shortcuts because shortcuts don't support that. So I would say the first line of difference is that which data sources are supported for mirroring versus shortcuts, because there is no overlapping. There is no single data source that supports both mirroring and shortcuts, at least not as of today. So the first distinction is which data source you plan to use. The second difference is that with mirroring, data is physically ingested in OneLake in Microsoft Fabric. So you have data stored somewhere else. With mirroring, this data becomes physically available inside OneLake. With shortcuts, that's not happening. With shortcuts, data stays outside of Fabric, but when your queries need data from specific external data source, then this data will be retrieved at the query time. So another difference is that with mirroring, you are physically ingesting data in Fabric. With shortcuts, you create a virtual copy of the data. So no physical ingestion. And I would say third difference would be performance, because with mirroring, data, as we said, is stored locally in Fabric. So you get the best possible performance because data is locally stored in Fabric. With shortcuts, performance depends on the data source. Also depends on network and all the other things that are involved in the process of retrieving the data. For example, your S3 may sit in Asia and your Fabric tenant is in Europe. So you need to include this overhead of moving data between different regions, which is not the case with mirroring.
Yeah, cool. Makes perfect sense. And thanks for having it explained. Yeah, because I guess it's misleading. Yeah, for some people, just like you mentioned, the differences between these two. We also mentioned these SQL databases. Yeah, and on one hand, we've got some older stuff where you had some relational databases. There were some analyzer services solutions built on top of that to serve the data, or even Power BI semantic models. And now we've got this file approach, let's say, in the modern data architecture. And where is the place for Fabric SQL database in that scope of whole Fabric? Yeah, because it's also, as I chatted with a couple of friends, they also got confused a bit. Yeah, on one hand we do have OneLake, we do have this approach with the files, yeah, the Parquet ones. But on the other hand, now we got a dozen of months ago, we got a SQL database within Fabric World. Yeah, and what's the purpose to how to use it? Is it like some kind of you can do some store some transactional data, or is it like for some developers to have some, I don't know, some logs or whatever? Just if you could share your expertise in here.
Sure. So the shortest explanation about SQL database in Fabric is that it was introduced to support so-called online transactional processing workloads. Those are these traditional workloads that you mentioned, where you have frequent data writes. And these frequent data writes require certain infrastructure, certain architecture. And to be honest, Lakehouse and Warehouse, they are not optimal solution for frequent data writes, because as you mentioned, they both rely on Parquet files. And when you write the data, because Parquet file cannot be changed, it's immutable. So whenever you write the data, there will be a new version of the Parquet file. And that means if you have thousands and thousands of updates in a short time period, you will end up with thousands and thousands of small Parquet files. And whenever you need to read the data from these files, it's a big overhead for your engine, because it needs to scan thousands and thousands of small Parquet files. That's why Microsoft and all these other vendors suggest that if you have these small Parquet files, you should compress them and create one bigger file out of these multiple smaller files. So that's the conceptual problem we have with storing the data in Parquet. That's simply how Parquet works. And essentially, it's not a problem of Fabric. That's a problem of Parquet. And to be honest, there are many scenarios where you have these frequent data writes. So what people were doing before SQL database in Fabric was introduced, they were using other transactional processing systems like Azure SQL Database or SQL Managed Instance or SQL Server on virtual machine or traditional on-premises SQL Server to handle these workloads. And then you need to create some kind of ETL workflow to move that data from your Azure SQL Database into Fabric. So the main idea behind Fabric SQL Database in Fabric is to give a possibility to handle these transactional workloads inside Fabric. so that you don't need to provision another database or any other item outside of Fabric. You can handle all of this inside Fabric, and data is also automatically replicated to Parquet, which means that you can then use it to combine with Warehouse, Lakehouse, or whatever other storage you are using in Fabric. So to conclude, SQL database in Fabric, its main purpose is to handle these traditional online transactional processing workloads.
Okay, cool. And it looks like a regular, I mean, you can use a regular client, yeah, like Management Studio to access it. How do you do it?
Yes. Any regular client that connects to a database, because this database also comes with a SQL endpoint, so you can use SQL Server Management Studio to connect to it and work with it. So if that's your preferred choice, also you can use built-in web user interface inside Fabric. But it's definitely available to choose.
Okay, cool. And just to wrap it up, so all roads lead to OneLake, so the data that is there in the Fabric database is also available via OneLake, yeah? So I guess it's, let's say, mirrored, right? Or
yes, it's mirrored in real time, so you get this replication in Parquet format that can be combined with other Fabric workloads.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot. So that's another cool feature and a point that I wanted to discuss. Now let's jump a little bit to Power BI that I guess most of the users heavily worked with or are currently working with. It's not the case that with Fabric Power BI is over, yeah, because there were also such thoughts from some people that it's completely changing, yeah, and even if you have some Fabric capacity bought, yeah, or you have some reserved machine, or you pay as you go, you still can use Power BI, right?
Yes, Power BI is now integral part of Microsoft Fabric, and if you want to be, let's say, 100% honest, Fabric was built on top of Power BI. So essentially, if you work with Power BI, you are already familiar with the experience through the web browser and concept of workspaces or capacity. So it's all the same thing. Now, the only difference is that beside these Power BI items like semantic models, reports, and so on, you can create some additional items like Lakehouse, Notebook, Pipeline, whatever comes with a Fabric. So essentially, we can say that Fabric was built on top of Power BI. And as you mentioned, Power BI is an integral part of Fabric. And one of the most common questions I've been getting since Fabric was introduced from Power BI people was like, I'm a Power BI professional. What should I do now? Should I be worried? Will my skills become obsolete or whatever? And the short answer is no, you don't need to worry. Relax. And I'm telling people, whatever you learned about Power BI before Fabric, it's still absolutely relevant. So all the best practices, all the recommendations and stuff like that, everything is still absolutely relevant. There are certain new features, new concepts, obviously, that Fabric introduced for Power BI people, and it would be nice to learn them, of course, but nothing changed, nothing fundamentally changed from a Power BI professional point of view with Fabric.
Yeah, but the cool thing about Power BI and Fabric is this new approach, yeah? I mean DirectLake, yeah? Because we used to have import mode, which was obviously the choice for most of the solutions when we got direct query, but we all know that sometimes there might have been some bottlenecks on the data source, yeah? So it's not the best approach. We should rather stick to import mode. And now with DirectLake, we got like the combination of these two. So we get extremely fast solution, yeah, with possibility to having, let's say, real-time data, yeah, in such a sense that you don't need to schedule any kind of refresh, yeah, just like on the import mode, you just using DirectLake, you can facilitate those two approaches, yeah, and how does it look like from your perspective? Yeah, did you have a chance to implement it in any of the solutions that you worked on as a consultant? Yeah, because I would like to hear more about that, because I didn't have a chance to do it yet. Yeah, in our solutions we are mostly working on the import mode. Sometimes it's direct query, but I've never had a chance to hear about DirectLake work.
Yeah. So first thing I want to say, and it is very important. So import and direct query are here to stay. So DirectLake is not a replacement for these two. DirectLake is now just another option. So think of it as, instead of choosing between two options, now I can choose between three options. So it will not replace import or direct query, or Microsoft doesn't have any plans or intentions to shut down import or direct query as storage mode. So these two are absolutely here to stay, and they have their own use cases. Now we can talk and discuss if these use cases are now a little bit different with the introduction of DirectLake, especially comparison between import and DirectLake, because I would say direct query makes sense from now on, makes sense only if your data is stored outside of OneLake, because DirectLake works only with Delta format, Delta tables stored in OneLake. So if your data is outside of OneLake and you have these real-time reporting requirements, then direct query is still an option. But if your data is in OneLake, in Delta Parquet format, then I would say direct query doesn't make much sense, right? So then it boils down to choosing between the import and DirectLake. I have a decision tree in the book that we published that covers most common, let's say, use cases or scenarios for developing semantic models, and then in which one to consider using DirectLake versus import. So to cut the story short, there are certain features that are not supported yet in DirectLake, like, for example, T-SQL views. So there are a lot of companies out there who have their serving layer built on top of a database using T-SQL views. And with import mode, T-SQL views work like a charm. They are not supported with DirectLake, so that's one thing if you have to consider going with import mode rather than with DirectLake. Also, what I'm saying, people, is if you have import mode models that work well, they don't consume too much resources during the refresh, you are happy with performance, you are happy with data refresh process, there is no reason to change anything, right? We were working this way for years, and if you're happy with something that works over years, why change it? But if you are starting from scratch and you have your data already stored in OneLake in Delta Parquet format, and you don't rely on any of the features that are currently not supported for DirectLake, I would then argue that DirectLake may have been prioritized, because you don't create another copy of the data like you do with import mode, and you get the data in, let's say, near real time, because it works from that point of view. It works similar to direct query. Whenever user interacts with the report, the query will be executed directly against the Delta table in OneLake. So to conclude, import has definitely a lot of use cases still, but if you are just starting from scratch inside Fabric and you have your data already inside OneLake as Delta Parquet, I would say DirectLake would be default choice in those scenarios. You also asked me, last year I worked at a client, they were migrating their import mode models to DirectLake. It's a let's say a group of very large semantic models, so tables with 9 to 10 billion rows, and for them it was really a pain. Previously they were using aggregations and all these techniques to somehow manage performance of such large semantic models. But with DirectLake, for them, it was really a game changer because they had models with 70, 80 gigabytes in size. So for them, DirectLake was really like they didn't have to implement complex incremental refresh policies and so on. And it was working just fine. So it was last year, I guess it still works and probably works even better after as the platform evolves and improves. So yeah, that's my take on DirectLake.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. So if someone has a huge semantic model, let's say, so we don't overwhelm the capacity with the copy using import mode, yeah, and if we have it materialized as a delta per k file within our OneLake, then we may think of going into DirectLake. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, mostly from that point of view of data refreshing, because in DirectLake you don't have physical data stored in the model. So when you do a refresh of DirectLake semantic model, it will just refresh the metadata. So you can create a semantic model in DirectLake with a table that has 1 billion records, hit refresh button, it will take 10 seconds to refresh it. Try to do the same thing with 1 billion records in import mode, it will take 3 hours probably. So because in import mode you have physical data, so Power BI will go and take the physical data and store it in the model. That's the fundamental difference between these two.
Sure. Cool. Thanks. Makes perfect sense. And regarding Fabric, yeah, everyone I guess is interested how much it all actually costs, yeah, because it's always the thing that whenever you build a data platform or you have some kind of solution or you want to migrate it, you always, of course, take into consideration the costs of it, yeah. And usually, as you can think of a data platform, you pay for some, right now, let's say in a modern stack, you pay for the storage, you pay for compute, you pay for maybe some kind of licenses. How does it look like from the Fabric perspective?
Yeah, that's totally fair. Totally fair to consider. So with Fabric, it's like you said, you have separate costs for storage and compute. Storage is fairly simple, so maybe we'll start with this part. So you pay approximately $25 per terabyte of data stored in OneLake. So 25 approximately, depends on the region, but approximately $25 per terabyte. Also, if you want to use OneLake cache, that's let's say enhancement within OneLake, where the data used for if you use a shortcut cache or if you use an event house, then event house leverage this OneLake cache storage. This one is 10 times more expensive. So you should also take into account, if you are using that, you should also count on that cost. So it's around $0.25 per gigabyte. So it's way more expensive. So this is storage. Also important to mention that for mirroring, currently you have free storage for mirrored data up to terabyte per capacity unit, which means if you have, for example, F8 capacity, then you have 8 terabytes for free for mirrored data, so only for mirrored data. This is storage. And then for compute, there are two options. There is a pay-as-you-go option, which where you are billed per second without any commitment. So this technically means you can turn on your Fabric capacity right now, keep it up and running for 30 seconds, and then you pause it, you will pay for 30 seconds. Important thing is that as soon as you resume Fabric capacity, so it doesn't mean that you need to do something, but as soon as it's up and running, you are going to be charged. But it's billed per second and there is no commitment, as I said, so you can use it 30 seconds per day, that's totally fine. And also there is another option, which is reserved instance pricing, where essentially you commit to pay for a certain amount of money regardless of your usage. So that means that, for example, I'll give you a comparison between the smallest capacity, F2 capacity is the smallest one. So for pay as you go, it will cost you around 250 euros if you keep it running 24/7 for 1 month, and it will cost you approximately 160 euros. So it's around 40% cheaper if you commit to reserved instance pricing. So it makes sense for those organizations that are constantly doing something inside Fabric. For them, it makes sense to pay this fixed price per month and then don't care about the usage and so on. Also about licenses. So with this you covered storage and you covered compute. For consuming Power BI reports, you need to pay Power BI Pro license, which now costs $14 per users, 14, so 1/4, for all capacities below F64. So that means if you have F2 and you have 50 Power BI users, you need to add additional $700 per month on top of your Fabric cost. Starting from F64, Power BI report consumers don't need any license. They can consume reports by leveraging free Power BI license. So from F64, that's the equivalent to current P1 capacity, which is the lowest premium capacity for Power BI. That's in a nutshell how it works.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot for sharing. I'm just wondering for the users, because I also got some questions from some colleagues, because let's say that you've got this pay-as-you-go option, in Fabric, and you've got some semantic model that is like a serving layer, the semantic layer for the end users. And if you want to make the data available for the end users, just to simply connect to the semantic model, the capacity must be, of course, turned on at that time, right?
Depends. If you just want to connect to a semantic model that contains the data, then it doesn't necessarily need to be turned on. But if you want to refresh it, then definitely yes. So
okay, so
I would say yes. In reality, yes, of course. But there are some situations maybe where you can save some dollars by doing some workarounds.
Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot for having it explained, because it was also misleading for some peeps. I'm also testing option of the questions from the listeners. Yeah.
And sorry, just to go back to also depends on the mode that you are using. So if you're using DirectLake, then it must be turned on all the time. Because it will go in during the query execution. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. I just wanted. So thanks for sharing that. And I'm also testing an approach where the listeners can ask questions. I shared the news that you're going to be the guest of the podcast. And I got one question from Sandra. Let me just quote it maybe so that everyone gets the context. So Sandra is writing that recently she talked about moving to Fabric, and a consultant told us that our current solution is not there yet ready for Fabric implementation. Sandra's company is using SQL Server, Azure Data Factory, and Power BI. And here is the question from Sandra. What requirements need to be met in order to implement Fabric, and what limitations does Fabric have compared to on-premises solutions? I know we don't have the big picture, and we don't see the setup that Sandra is discussing right now. But I guess this question is quite good, So what requirements would you suggest users to fulfill if they want to implement Fabric? And then we can dive into these differences between on-prem solution and the Fabric one. The basic one would be simply it's cloud one. So you need to take into consideration cost. But maybe let's start with this first part. So what requirements would you give to the company if they come to you and say, hey, we would like to go to Fabric?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to provide a meaningful answer without knowing details and why someone told that. So we are missing some context here, definitely. But so Fabric is a software as a service. That's the key thing to keep in mind for everyone considering moving to Fabric. Software as a service means you pay someone, like in this case, you are paying Microsoft, and you don't care about provisioning things, updating things, setting the infrastructure, tuning your servers, and doing all these things. So someone else takes care for you. So and things just work. So that's the beauty of software as a service. But also there is a beauty with double quotes, which means that by giving someone else, let's say, ability to do that for you, you are giving up on configuring things how you want them to be configured. So maybe you don't want your transactional workloads in SQL Database in Fabric to consume X amount of your capacity units. You want to have more control over the size of your database or over the size of your database units and stuff like that. Maybe you need more control, more configurability. For those scenarios, Fabric is not a good solution because in Fabric you just pay for the capacity license and that's it. So you can't say I want my warehouse to consume 25% of my workloads and my lakehouse 35% or my semantic models and so on. So you don't have this level of control, right? With all these separate components like SQL Server or Azure Data Factory and so on, you are in charge. So you can control the size of your SQL Server, right? So you can control the size or performance of your Azure Data Factory pipelines. So the main question that every organization considering moving to Fabric is, do I want software as a service solution or not? Because there are other solutions inside Microsoft. So if you are already a Microsoft shop, let's say, there are other solutions that work well that are not Fabric and that are not software as a service. So for me, that's the key question. Do I want software as a service so I can, put my hands off and everything will just work? Or do I want more control, more configurability, but also to invest more effort from my side? That's the main thing. Another part of the question is comparing SQL Server and other on-premises data solutions with Fabric. Here, the first draw line is: do I want my data to be stored in cloud or not? Right. So with SQL Server, your data is physically stored on your server, right? So it's not in the cloud. That's the question. Here, I know in Europe, in big part of Europe, there are still a lot of requirements from governments that data cannot be stored in the cloud, or some limited parts of the data can be stored in the cloud. So the question is, do I want, or can I, or am I allowed to store my data in the cloud? And then the second question is, okay, if I'm allowed to store my data in the cloud, do I want software as a service solution or platform as a service or infrastructure as a service? So there are different levels of options for organizations to choose from. Therefore, I can't say why someone told that they are not ready for Fabric. I don't know. Technically, this SQL Server, Data Factory, Power BI, let's say, workflow can be easily replicated in Fabric, and it will probably work in a way more intuitive way than right now with connecting, handling on-premises data gateway, and so on. But again, we are missing the context why this was an answer.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot for that. That was very meaningful, and thanks Sandra for sharing the question. So it's always good to ask the questions, especially to the experts. So that you can, if you're interested, feel free to ping me once I announce that someone else is coming in. It's a good option to raise those questions. So thanks, Nikola, for explaining that. Okay, when it comes to the podcasting, I'm always keen on people's history and how they actually got into the data, because my history was also a little bit different. I graduated from University of Economics, so at first I worked at finance, so it was not that I graduated from some technical school, how did your journey into the data look like? Was it always that you've been interested in it, or how did you come to the place where you are right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I used to work for a bank, but I didn't work in IT department. I was working as a risk analyst, but I was working with data, and I've been creating reports and some forecasting and stuff like that, based on risk and fraudulent data in the bank. So I would say I was involved in analytics, but I didn't work with tech at that time. And then I completed my bachelor degree in information technologies, and then I started. So I was obviously during these college days, I also learned some programming languages and so on. One of those was SQL. And then after the college, I started working more with SQL. And then after that, I started working with Microsoft's technologies. So it was SQL Server back then, 2005. And since then, I had like a short trip outside of Microsoft world to Oracle and MicroStrategy, but it was just for a couple of months. Other than that, it's always been Microsoft's data platform technologies and this tech. So since SQL Server 2005 up until now with Fabric. So nothing fancy about my background, but yeah, I always loved working with numbers and with data.
Cool. And you are also the Microsoft MVP, right? In terms of data platform. So that's also a nice thing to mention about you.
Yeah, it's a recognition basically for community contributions when it comes to Microsoft technologies. So I've been for the last 5 years. I've been previously it was called Data Platform. Now it's still Data Platform, like a big umbrella, but then there are some different subcategories. I'm currently Microsoft MVP for Microsoft Fabric and Power BI, because those are technologies that I'm using nowadays most often.
Yeah, and you also share your knowledge via Data Mozart channels. So I will also link them in the description of the episode.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool. And in your free time, I know you're a football fan. So do you have some time to watch football? I guess you're super busy with your stuff. You're also contributing to the community. You've got plenty of commitments. But what does Nikola do in the free time?
Yes, of course. So yes, I'm a big football fan. Especially I love Barca from all. Let's say these European clubs. My childhood favorite club is Red Star from Belgrade, but from all these clubs in Europe, I love Barca since 90s. Back then, Romario, Brazilian guy, he was my favorite player during beginning of 90s, and then he moved to Barca. I started watching Barca because of him. Then he left, but I fell in love with Barca, and then it's like 30 years affection with Barca. And I have 2 kids, so it's always funny spending time with them, and that's how I spend most of my free time.
Cool. And from time to time, do you go to Barca's matches?
Yeah, sure. So I went so far I went more than 10 times to.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I'm waiting now for this new stadium to be finished, and then I plan to go to visit the new stadium.
Yeah,
I also
cool.
took my kids now during this summer break. We went to Spain, and I took them to Barca Museum and to feel a little bit this atmosphere and so on.
Cool. We also chatted a bit, because your Red Star played against my Lech Poznan in the Champions League qualifiers, but maybe...
Sorry for knocking out your club,
Let's maybe not discuss it today.
Yeah.
It was not that bad. Okay, cool. Thanks, Nikola. Thanks a lot for sharing so many interesting insights in the world of Fabric. It was really super cool to have you here. I will definitely I will definitely post the stuff that we mentioned. I mean, your book that you wrote with Ben in the description of the episode. So if anyone is interested, feel free to jump in. Thanks a lot again, and it was really super nice to have you here.
Thank you, Dominik. Thanks for inviting me, and greetings to all your listeners.
Yeah, thank you very much.